Okay, so the fourth thing that's going on in Europe is the Enlightenment, or rather, right before the Industrial Revolution is the Enlightenment. And so, going a little further back, sorry, let me make this smaller. If I can make this smaller, okay. Going a little further back, we have the Scientific Revolution, which is kind of the production of all these new scientific ideas, associated with these towering figures. We've got Descartes, Galileo, Newton, and really it's kind of the development of sort of modern, modern science as we know it. And if we're thinking about this, we have the Industrial Revolution, which is happening in the late 1700s into the 1800s, which is, that's sustained innovation. And then we have the Scientific Revolution kind of back here. And if you're just thinking about historically, like, okay, why don't those happen on top of each other? If all of a sudden you get a bunch of science, how does that not then turn into innovation? It's almost like you have productive knowledge versus unproductive knowledge, or maybe unproductive is not the right word, but knowledge that isn't directly applied to industry. And so Joel Mokyr, who's like this economic historian, really says the Enlightenment is the thing that kind of connects these two, where it just takes knowledge that's over here and then translates it to industry. And so it's like Enlightenment to him is really building this bridge, or the Enlightenment is building this bridge and kind of setting that foundation for what would happen in the Industrial Revolution. Okay, so what is it? Just briefly, it's kind of this movement that is going to emphasize reason and individualism over tradition, like kind of like the idea that there are new ways of doing things, kind of question everything, and it's really putting like logic and reason to the fore. And this movement is kind of taking place in a bunch of different areas, art, literature, and science, philosophy. And here are some of the key figures. Newton kind of goes in between. He kind of exists in both movements, Scientific Revolution and then into the Enlightenment. Locke, Voltaire, you may have heard of, Francis Bacon. Okay, and so really, in order to give some structure to this, Mokyr is basically saying you could think about the Enlightenment as really setting the stage in these four ways: agenda, capabilities, selection, and diffusion. Let's go through each of these. So agenda, with the Enlightenment, with Francis Bacon, you really have, not the first time, but in terms of like putting it into people's consciousness that the human condition, the human situation could indeed be improved. So if you think about it, if we're a peasant, right? If we're just a bunch of peasants, we've been peasants for thousands of years, all right? We're working the land. You grow food, you eat it, all right? Kill some animals, you eat them. You got some animals over here, you got some crops over here. They give you food. That's the way life is. Like, why would you think there could be anything better? Like, this is just how life is. Why would you think that we can come up with some technology? Like, it's completely foreign to you because for thousands of years, you've just done it this way. So what Bacon says is like, no, like there's a way to harness nature, and to get some higher quality of life. We can use knowledge. We can use things we discover. Instead of using it just as a curiosity, we can try to apply it and make our lives better. So it kind of like sets this goal, like set a goal and achieve. Like it sets this goal in people's minds, like, okay, maybe we can do better. Also in the period, various types of capabilities are invented. So Mokyr calls them the 3 C's: counting, classifying, cataloging. So we start to have like formal methods of counting and math symbols that are understood between places, so we can kind of talk to each other mathematically. Classifying, we're starting to kind of classify the natural world and catalog it. We have things like the different tools of science are being developed as well. So again, it's like, okay, now we have the agenda, like things can get better, and we're starting to build up our scientific capabilities. Like we got the printing press, and people are literate, so we can kind of talk to each other from far distances via books and pamphlets. We kind of understand the same language with these math symbols, and we're starting to build up a store of knowledge. And then we have this hugely important idea of selection, that there is some knowledge and it can be found. So knowledge should be contestable. It should be subject to rigor. So it's like, okay, I have an idea, you can come at me. Like I don't think Professor Hill's idea is right. here's my idea. We can kind of put them in opposition to each other. We can come up with experiment. We can argue about them to figure out which is the right idea. And these things, this knowledge, should be absent from biases that may come from political biases or religious biases. Once we've established this knowledge via this process, like, okay, we've experimented it tons of times, this seems to be true, it's regarded as a consensus. Now that, okay, we all believe this piece, we've got this piece because we have this process to develop it. Now you can build upon that, okay? And really, this is culture of debate and openness and replication that really takes hold. So once you have this system to create knowledge, then that knowledge can be built upon and built upon. Lastly, they start to create some of the organizations to get that knowledge out. Once we've kind of come up with it over here, how do we diffuse it to the population? So we have scientific societies and scientific journals. And so this knowledge can spread vertically from, hey, I'm the scientist over here, you're in industry, let me tell you what I just discovered. You can put it to practice. And then horizontally, hey, I'm doing this. I'm working on this engine, this steam engine. I know you're also working on it. Here's what I found. What have you found? Let's talk. So you have these sort of systems via these journals, societies, and just books that kind of spread that knowledge out throughout society. Okay. And so we kind of have this idea that, hey, things don't have to be the way they are. We can get better. We're building up our tools to create knowledge in science. We're having an understanding about how that knowledge is created, a system that creates that knowledge, and we're getting that knowledge out. And so once the Enlightenment basically puts those all in place, and then boom, innovation takes off during the Industrial Revolution after the Enlightenment kind of sets this foundation. All right. So what are the evidence for Mokyr's various ideas? So the first problem, so it's when this is, in a classroom setting, I always ask, like, what is the Enlightenment associated with? Nobody really knows now in the present, but typically, historically, the Enlightenment was associated with France. Like, it was seen as a French movement. I mean, France in general, like, thinks they invented civilization, and we can kind of tie it to this. Like, they were kind of the central place of the Enlightenment, or at least that's what people perceive them to be. So what Mokyr did is he went and looked at this Encyclopedia of Enlightenment and kind of found instances of Enlightenment works. And what he did is he came up with this index that is basically just how much Enlightenment works were in a place divided by the population. And so what you can see is actually England and Scotland were much more involved than, say, France and the Netherlands as well. And these are kind of the places where we first see the Industrial Revolution. So, kind of the initial critique of Mokyr was like, okay, well, you say the Enlightenment is so important. How come the Industrial Revolution did happen in France? So he comes back with saying, like, look, I built these indexes up, and actually it's, the Enlightenment is a Europe-wide event, really. Okay, and here we go. Here's the scientific periodicals. We can see them start to really ramp up into the Industrial Revolution. Scientific societies, we again can see those ramp up during the Enlightenment and then really take off during the Industrial Revolution. Okay, and so really what Mokyr is saying is that this previous movement kind of set that stage for the Industrial Revolution. This process that was like relegated to science now can be spread out to practitioners, to, mechanics and, inventors. And this is, really laying this foundation for the Industrial Revolution.